Okay, I will open our school committee meeting for October 13th. If we could stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you could remain standing for a moment of silence for Robert Bowen. He's a lifelong resident of Millville, and he passed away last week. He did work as the superintendent of maintenance for our district for over 20 years. Thank you. And we'll start with introduction of members.
Millville.
Carrie Gaudette, Blackstone.
Dan Keith, Blackstone.
Erin Vanaco, Millville.
Charles Dunton, Blackstone.
Deirdre Farrell, Interim School Business Manager.
Jason DeFalco, Superintendent.
Thank you very much. And it looks like we're missing our student reps tonight. Hopefully we can catch up with them soon. I'm looking for the motion for consent agenda A, which has warrants, minutes of meeting for September 15th, and the motions made at our workshop on September 29th.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Kerry. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dan. Any questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. And we have some time for a public forum, but I believe everyone here is on our agenda, so I will keep moving. I asked Jason to move the agenda around this evening so we could start with our guests in the audience, and then we will move over to school committee. So it's up for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. The first item under my report is an update that we had to make to our health curriculum. And I appreciate very much some of those that work directly on that being here tonight to speak to any questions that you might have. Our lead coach and our lead nurse for the district are going to speak specifically to the changes in the curriculum if you want to join us up front. But we also have Ms. Ducharme, Mr. Uglow, and Ms. Cole here that worked very hard to put together the updates that we need to have in front of our students. So if there are any specific questions in things you're kind of wondering about how they put this together, they're certainly here to speak to those as well. So we're very grateful. And for our little one in the audience, who's Ms. Cole is pulling double duty here. So thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. So in this past spring, I realized that the reproduction sexuality section of the health curriculum was only being taught in the high school. At some point in time, it had been omitted from the younger grades. So I notified Jason, and we reviewed the framework, which is currently from 1999. It's in the process of being revised, but it hasn't gotten to that point yet. And then we developed a plan to have the PE teachers work on the curriculum over the summer in order to meet the framework from the state. And then Mary joined us, and I'll let her take it from here.
So then I worked with Karen and the phys ed department from high school, middle school, and elementary. Look at the frameworks and to make sure that we were including all of the frameworks into the curriculum. They worked very hard, and so the high school didn't have that much of a change. There were just some words that had to be changed, and then the middle school and the 5th grade were the big changes that they had to be implemented.
And I believe in your packets you have essentially the overview of each unit.
So
Yeah.
yes, you have the outline of each of the units, and as you can see, the the high school, there was not really that much of a change. They had been doing this, but there was nothing being taught at the middle or in 5th grade.
There's also a parent letter. I put in the one from the high school, but all grades will get that letter for anyone who would like to opt their child out of this section of the curriculum.
And this letter will be sent each year as an
Yes.
option?
Yep.
I believe you were already sending the letter anyway, so the high school had been sending the letter anyway.
Right. But a parent's choice in 5th grade can be different than
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's
middle
yes,
school or high school.
Right.
Did you have a question, Chuck?
Yeah, what kind of options, if they opt out, do they get, where do they go if they opt out?
Typically, they opt out. We give them what is called like a portfolio type of an assignment, where those classes that we'd be doing, our wellness classes and doing the sexual education part, they'll have a separate assignment to be working on that's more sport oriented, and they'd be in the LMC or the library. They'd be out of the general classroom.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the updated curriculum? Well, I think it's extremely important. I think it's something we all already thought was being taught. So thank you for your time this summer in updating it and making sure that our kids have the right information, the best information out there, I guess. You said this is in the process of being updated?
It is. They started in 2019, and then with COVID, what I heard was it was stalled at the federal level for approval, but I'm not positive on that.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the updated sexual health reproductive curriculum for grades 5 through 12.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Erin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ted. Any other questions or comments for the group while we have them here?
I just have one. So is your curriculum that you've set, is that in line with the current
Yes.
Masc
Yes.
framework? So it's not
Yes.
inclusive of what they're trying to change it to?
No.
We
We
haven't
don't
seen-
have that.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate any part of this program being controversial, or you don't expect
We
any?
don't allow it to get controversial. So it's pretty health promotion, health protection, these are the facts. We don't get into anything that would cause any controversy religious wise or anything like that. And I think we're upfront with that in the first day of the unit.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you again. Thank you for putting this together for the kids.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you.
And no COVID for me tonight.
Thank you, Karen. The next item on my report is a review of our 2022 Mcas results. As the committee and the community are aware, these results went public a few weeks ago. I have a shorter presentation tonight for our school community because if we think back to the 2021 MCAS exam, it was an abbreviated test. And essentially, the students in 2021 took an exam at each grade level that was one session. In 2022, they took the full exam. It was back to 3 sessions. And so we have been asked by the Department of Education to not compare the two exams because they were pretty different. So comparing the 22 data to the 2021 data essentially is not reliable or valid because the tests were significantly different. So in hindsight, I'm looking at, and I wanted to open the discussion this evening with the goal that I had framed for our student learning focus for the 2021-22 school year, because had I known from the Department of Education then, what they shared with us about a month ago, I wouldn't have written the goal this way. You'll notice that the goal was drafted in comparing the 2022 data to the 2021 data. I'm not overly concerned about that, but I just wanted to put it out there in front of the conversation, just so the public knows that the goal I would have drafted it differently and probably would have looked to the 2019 results because there are no 2020 results as the test was canceled that year. So the 2019 results can be compared to the 2022 results because the test is the same, frankly. And so the public will notice that as we move forward and look at the results from this year, we're comparing it to the 2019 results in terms of how we did in 2022. So we looked at those 2 years, 2022 and 2019, because the test was the same. And also I wanted to show something a little bit different this evening for our conversation, in that if you look to the yellow column, you will see the Blackstone Millville Regional District results for 2022 compared to 2019 for each grade level. If you look at the column all the way to the right, you will see the ELA state results. Now, I did that intentionally because I want to draw to our community's attention a few things that I think are really important to notice here. And before I get into these results, I want to thank our school committee. I want to thank our community as a whole, and our teachers and support staff for these results. Because one of the things that you will notice very quickly is that our school system, in most cases, not all, but in most cases, did not backslide anywhere near to the degree that the state averages did. That is because as we sat through our reopening plans and we dealt with COVID, you might remember that we were 6th in the state from the top with the most in-person instructional time for kids, which I know sounds a little strange, but we fought really hard to get our kids in school as much as possible, in the fact that if you remember, we had our pre-K through grade 3 in every day. We had 2 classrooms, we were Zooming from one room to the next, we had partner teachers, Bluetooth speakers, all of these kinds of wacky things. And we also, if you remember, we didn't do the deep clean day, which I don't really know what that was, but we didn't do that. We used that, a lot of places had that Wednesday off in the middle of the week to deep clean. We didn't do that. The kids were in every day that we could get them in, and we cleaned every day as we normally would. So if you think about that, 1 day a week over 40 weeks of instruction, that's 40 days of learning. That's a ton of time. That is a ton of time. So I want to kind of reframe that, because the results we have now are not exactly where we want to be, but we didn't see the huge step backwards that you look to the right column and see that the state took in most cases, because we try to keep our kids here as much as we could and weathered COVID the best we could. One of the other things I just want to remind our community, we were also on the forefront of in-school testing. That was also very controversial, but we did it with parental consent because if you remember, that was the test and stay program. Early on, if you had a close contact, the class was out, right? Or at least those kids in the immediate, I think it was 6 feet circumference or range of the student that was positive. As soon as there was an opportunity to turn our nursing offices into testing labs, which was literally what I had to do. We had to go through the paperwork and get it approved from Department of Public Health to turn our nursing offices into testing labs so that we could actually test the kids. So if they were negative, we could send them back to class. They didn't have to go home. Mm-hmm. That was a game changer. And I know that the committee remembers, we saved hundreds and hundreds of time on learning days for kids as a result. Well, we're seeing how all of those efforts helped us not step back to the degree that the state averages saw. And so I certainly don't want to sit and go through every single one of these numbers, but I do want to highlight a few things that I think are important, because we also saw, in some cases, reverse trends. So I want to draw to your attention 4th grade as an example. If you look at fourth grade ELA as the state, we went from a state average of 52% of our kids meeting or exceeding standards to 38% as a state. If you look at the complex, we went from 36% to 46%. So we actually saw a 10% increase. Remember, those kiddos were in school every day, right? Because they were in younger grades, second, third grade, all the way through. We kept them in person every day. 2 classrooms, Zooming one room to the other room, partner teachers, Bluetooth speakers, all those weird things. But it worked, right? It helped in terms of not taking a step back, and actually made progress. You will also notice that the middle school did take a significant step backwards. And so there is a lot of work to be done there. We know that. You are going to be hearing from, actually, Ms. Cotillo, who's joining us this evening. Thank you for being here. But you're going to be hearing from our new principal and her team that has been very hard at work creating some redesign plans in terms of how she and the team is going, at the middle school, is going to help reset the teaching and learning here this year. We're not going to wait. But at our October 27th meeting, when we present our school improvement plans, you'll be hearing directly from the middle school team and what they're doing to address some of the gaps that have occurred over time at the middle school. If you look at averages, if you're interested in looking at averages, you can see grades 3 through 8 ELA decreased on average. So we had, in 2019, we had 46% of students meeting or exceeding grade level. We did see a decrease by 8%, but I want to draw your attention to the state that saw a decrease on average, grades 3 to 8, of 11%. So again, we don't, and I know our committee knows this, but I don't usually use state averages as a benchmark for us. I use our own data to compare our data to, because I think that that's what matters most. But in this case, given the circumstances that we were been in the past couple of years, and the fact that I can't use the 2021 data with any reliable way, we're doing it a little bit different. So you can get a sense to see how did we fare as in comparison to the state. And you'll see at the high school in 2019, and I want to just bring this back up again, and I'm sorry for all these kind of nuances. It's just the way that the cards have fallen. If the committee remembers, in 2019, the Department of Education shifted from the old Mcas legacy, it was called, to the new Mcas 2.0. You might remember that on the Mcas legacy that year, we were 99% proficient in advanced. When they converted it to the new exam, we were 56% meeting and exceeding expectations. Remember, that was the year with the different cut scores, and it was, we had 2 sets of data. That was our transition year. So that year on the new exam, 2019, for grade 10, we were at 99% proficient in advanced, and then all of that got shifted to meeting and exceeding, which then dropped our percentages to 56%. So through all things that were COVID, we saw a decrease of 4%, which is not statistically significant. And if you look as a state, the state reduced the meeting and exceeding numbers by 3%. So we're essentially in striking distance to where the state was with that. So our kids held their own more or less there. Again, not where we want this data to be, but I do think it's important to show the nuances and the differences here. And I'm going to look at some other data in a moment that shows really the good work as far as student growth that we were able to do. But before we get to that, looking at our numbers for mathematics, you can see, again, where we were in 2019, we're the yellow column. So in 2019, compared to 2022, there's a really good story to be told here. You're probably seeing the data kind of glaring when you look at the state data compared to us. Our grade 3 went from 40% meeting and exceeding expectations in 2019 to 66% in 2022. And again, I'm not going to read all the numbers to you, but you can see the differences. But one of the things that I want to bring to everyone's attention is I do think it's really important to note we were really focused last year on math in terms of selecting a math curriculum, analyzing our math practices, our math materials. And there is that expression of what gets monitored gets done. And I only mention that to say that I think what we're seeing here is a result of people really focused on the math curriculum and the math practices, instructional practices, and seeing, when we really focused on just kind of analyzing and studying what we were doing. And by the way, this wasn't with our new math materials yet. This was just focusing on a deep dive into what we're using and how we're using it. I think we saw some nice gains. Again, not in all places. Again, we know the middle school. I'm certainly not trying to gloss over that, but I know when we talk on the 27th of October, we're going to do a deep dive into all things middle school. So I'm by no means trying to skirt over that data. I just know we're going to have a much bigger conversation about it when we look at the redesign work. But again, if you look at the averages, the 3 to 8 average, so how did we do overall in grades 3 through 8 in math? In 2019, we were at 44%, and in 2022, we were at 40% meeting and exceeding, so we did see a decrease of about 4%. As a state average, in 2019, the state average in grades 3 through 8 math was 49% meeting and exceeding expectations. The state averages in 2022 were at 39%, so they saw a 10% decrease. And I left off the state average for 2019 in math. I'm sorry about that. I can update that and get it back out to the committee. And you can see in 10th grade, we did see a step back from 49% in 2019 to 41% in 2022. And again, when we meet with the principals and their leadership teams, because we will have their instructional leadership teams with them, members of their teams with them on the 27th, not only will they talk about their specific data, but they're going to talk about what they're doing with it and how they're working to address that. Not just academically, but also the whole child piece of that. And then we look at science. Again, there's some really good news to share, and there's some urgent messages in terms of where our focus is. We only test in grades, the state only tests in grades 5, 8, and 10. So if you look in 5th grade, you can see some good news here. In 2019, we were at 56% meeting and exceeding expectations. And you can see that in 22, we were at 59%. So we saw a little bump, whereas compared to the state average in 2019 of meeting and exceeding expectations was 48%. So we were higher then. They're at 43% now. They went backwards. We improved our outcomes, which is a really nice story to be told. And I have to tell you, I met with the staff at the JFK AFM complex this week and the staff at the Millville Elementary. As I explained, the Millville teachers, the kids either came from there or went through there, right? Because we've been in this kind of merger over the past few years. And it was really important that they understand just how incredibly proud I am of their work. This was really hard. This was really hard under circumstances that were just not fair to anybody. And the fact that we were able to get the results that we did, and we were able to see the growth that we did with our youngest learners was incredible. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the elementary school teachers did it reconfiguring schools, grade levels, and teams every year. Starting when we reopened with COVID and we had all kindergartners at MES, right? And then we built it up, right? Then that next year it was K and 1, and then this year the build-out's done. But I had said to the team at Millville and to the principal that, they've all been a new school every year for the past 3 years. And Christina Schaefer has been a first-year principal every year since I started, because that's when we started this work, when she was a first-year principal, and then we started the reorganization. And so everybody has worked incredibly hard, but could not be more proud of our elementary team in terms of the work that they have done to weather this with our youngest kids. And I was kind of sharing with them when we reopened last year in masks in 3 feet, but didn't need to be 6 feet, and you had kids that hadn't been in school because some kids were full remote for kindergarten. We're in first grade classrooms, and these, God bless them, the children didn't know they didn't sat in a classroom. They didn't go to PK. They couldn't, they opted for full remote kindergarten. And, I shared with the committee some kind of funny stories. We're walking through classrooms, we're pulling pencils out of ears, out of noses, we're helping kids put their shirts back on. We're like, no, we wear clothes in school, honey, like you put your shirt on. Because they were at home. The kids were at home all day, right? They were on their computer. They were getting up, walking around, taking their clothes off, putting pencils in their noses. And so they really had to learn how to do school, right? And so it was, everybody has worked incredibly hard. And I by no means am taking away anything from our secondary teachers, because they had totally different challenges to contend with. Pictures of, kids putting pictures of themselves up in their camera, but actually leaving to go play a video game. But it was like a cutout of, just the creative things the children did to try to find ways around of not doing the virtual school. And I'm meeting with the middle school next week and the high school shortly thereafter. So it isn't to take away any of that. It was just different challenges. But the fact that we saw the results we did is pretty astounding. And if you go down to, again, middle school, we know we have work to do. We're going to be addressing that with the redesign work. And Ms. Cotillo has rolled up her sleeves and dug in deep and started the redesign work with the team, I think, on day 4. That you were here, so has not shied away from that challenge in any way, shape, or form. And neither have the teachers, frankly. They've been great. And in 10th grade, you can see that our students in 10th grade science are actually outperforming, not by a significant amount, but by about 4%, the state average. And again, I know we don't typically spend a lot of time on state averages. That's just not our benchmark, but it really was the best thing to compare our data to this year, given all the circumstances that we've been facing. I think there's a major story to be told here underneath our growth percentiles. In the goal that we had set for our student learning last year, we had said that all tested subjects, not science, because there's no growth in science, but all tested grades and subjects for ELA and math would meet or exceed at least the 50th percentile of statewide growth. We've done that. With the exception of grade 4 mathematics, and we're 2 points from there. So we are right within striking distance. In grade 6, very close again in ELA, not so much in math. 41 is low. We don't want to be in 41, the 41st percentile. In grade 8 ELA, we're in the 45th percentile. So again, about 5 points off. So I mentioned this, and I think there's a lot to be spoken about here, because even though, as we've talked about, the middle school meeting and exceeding numbers not being where they are, in some cases, in at least half, they did hit their growth percentiles. And again, just to remind everybody what this means, so when you look at, for instance, our 4th grade ELA, we're in the 50th percentile. This means that our kids outperformed 50% of students from the year prior that had the same score they had. So that's good. We want to see that growth in at least 50. And in some cases, it was far stronger. 5th grade was in the 60th percentile for ELA and the 70th for math. So you can see where we really outgrew our peers. If you look at the grades 3 to 8 averages, and the interesting thing about growth, not to get like statistical on it, but it's not a mean, it's a median growth. And the reason that that's important is because mean is average, right? And you would assume your average of all these numbers would be 50 because they're out of 100, right? So the average of that would be 50. These are actually median. So they're ranked top growth to lowest growth, and you move and work your way right into the middle. That's statistically significant and important because if you look at grades 3 to 8 ELA, our median growth was 50, which was where we wanted it to be.
This is to the state, not to our,
right. It's to the
students.
state. It's everybody.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is compared to 21?
19.
This is 19?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Because again, they wouldn't.
This is not last year.
That's right. We couldn't compare it to the 21 data. Thank you, Erin, for clarifying that. I'm glad you asked that question. And then for mathematics, grades 3 to 8 grew in the 53rd percentile. So if you actually look at our growth statewide, grades 3 to 8 and ELA and math, and then also in grades 10, we're actually holding our own as far as the kids progressing at the rate that we want to see.
And just to make sure everyone is on the same page, this is not student to student. This is not student to student. This is our curriculum and our instruction to the grade level.
Yes. Yep. It's all the individual kids collectively
Right.
put together. So this gives you a grade level snapshot. Is that what you're?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just making sure that
Absolutely.
everyone knows we're not comparing students to their own progress from from 2019
Right. It's the state data.
state.
Did that make
State
sense?
grade level.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I hope I explained that okay. So that's a snapshot of where things stood, I will say, because we look at this data now as like an autopsy, because this was from our students at the end of the year, and we've already completed our beginning of year assessing with students on STAR, and we have our data meetings next week, where we're meeting with our school-based instructional leadership teams to go through all of their data. And you might remember, you heard a bit about this from our principals in the spring, but they used their end of year STAR data, and then they integrated this over the summer to build all their RTI and intervention groups. So this data is already in use and has been. So,
That's important.
let me pause here.
So actually, I think this would be a great segue into, if we can go out of order a little and go to school committee item A, the superintendent evaluation for 21-22. This is the only data we were waiting for, which Jason did present to us on September 29th. So we've had a chance to finish his evaluation. And I feel like it just makes sense to jump a little from, instead of him going on to his goals for next year, we should wrap up last year. So if everyone has their document that I shared via email, and I left one on your table, I'm just going to go through how we rated Jason collectively as a committee. We do speak in one voice for his evaluation, and he is evaluated in public. So based on his goals and his presentations to us with his evidence, we have all taken the time to rate Jason based on last year's goals. We're a little bit late this year because we were waiting for the Mcas data, but we will wrap that up tonight. So I'm just going to go through and give Jason his ratings based on our one voice. So standard 1, instructional leadership. Jason exceeded that goal. Student learning, also instructional leadership. Jason met that goal. His overall rating for standard 1, based on the evidence submitted, is met. I think many of us use the STAR data evidence that he submitted for this, which was much appreciated. Using the curriculum with fidelity, and Jason provided many examples for these, so that was an easier one. Standard 2, management and operations. Jason met the environment goal. Standard. Scheduling and management information systems, met. Overall rating for standard 2 based on the evidence submitted. Jason met standard 2. Standard 3, engagement, exceeded. Standard 3, communication, exceeded. So overall rating for standard 3 was exceeded. And standard 4, cultural proficiency, met. Continuous learning, met. Overall rating for standard 4 is met. And then diving deeper into Jason's goals, which is really the work around all of the standards that we were just notating. Professional practice goal for the district strategic plan, Blueprint 2.0. Jason exceeded this goal. The evidence provided came throughout the year with the meetings with Carrie Purcell, and I think it came full circle when the group presented to us in June. I think you had in here by June 1st and July 1st, sorry. And you know, that work progressed through the year, and we definitely all saw that. So exceeded for professional practice goal, developing the Blueprint 2.0. District improvement goal, academic acceleration. Jason met this goal. And that was by the end of 21-22, 100% of our schools will show evidence of all students having equitable access to improved core and intervention instruction as measured by STAR, Mcas 2.0, and RTI student performance monitoring. And then district improvement goal, capital planning. Jason met this, and we are hopeful to be in the process of being accepted by MSBA, and we'll see a continuation of this into next year's goals. I think many of us feel that this will be an ongoing goal, and
You'll see it tonight.
we will see it tonight. Student learning goal, which is what was just presented to us. The Mcas results. Jason's goal was by the end of the school year, of the 21 school year, all students across subgroups in grades 3 to 10 will see an increase of at least 10% in meeting or exceeding expectations of the 2021 Mcas results on ELA, math, and science, Mcas 2.0. And also move at least 50 into the 50th percentile in ELA and math on a statewide student growth. And this is the last one that we just finished. I do have it here. I might have erased it. And though the results that were just shown were not a 21 comparison, they were compared to 19. We do know that it came in as some progress, being that we didn't meet the 10% as stated in that goal.
Erin, did you get the diversity, equity, and inclusion one? I may have missed it, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask the same thing.
Yes, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
I went from the district improvement goal for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Jason met that goal. Great work here. It's important, and I think we will see some continuation of that one as well, as it's something that the state is focusing deeply on. Even, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but even the Masc Conference is based on the diversity, equity, and inclusion for all students. Did anyone want to add any comments or read a comment off of, not theirs specifically, because we are one voice. So that is the conclusion of Jason's evaluation for 21-22, and we will be moving into his new goals. So the work never stops. And even for our newest members, you'll see how this cycle begins. And, you kind of came in and saw the work finishing. Now you're going to see how it begins as well with the creation of his new goals. But I think it was a strong year. I think it shows with your evaluation, and we always appreciate the time and energy you put in. It's always above and beyond. They don't ask. We're not asking for personal opinions. We're going off of your data and your evidence, but it's great to see everything come full circle, and the work does pay off. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to serve our children. I appreciate it very much. And as you said, the drum beats on here. I just need to get the other slide deck put up so I can walk through the goals. Do you have in your packet?
So we'll be moving back to the report of superintendent school year 22-23 superintendent goals, which, yes, everyone does have, right?
And I do appreciate very much the time, effort, and energy the committee put into the feedback. I definitely have read through every single one of these comments multiple times, and I hope you see that reflected here in the areas that the committee has stated clearly they'd like to see some additional focus brought to. So I can highlight those as soon as we jump into the work.
And I should mention too, we will be moving into executive session after this meeting to finalize the part of the evaluation where we talk to Jason about his contract and anything in there. We do discuss in executive session, but in our next public meeting, we will publicly announce what agreement, if any, we came to with Jason based on the conclusion of his cycle here. And if you're ready, we can go into next year.
Thanks, Erin.
Actually, let me say one more thing, sorry.
No, that's okay.
We don't usually do this all in one meeting. Usually we finish the evaluation in late summer, and this is the meeting that you would be presenting your goals.
Yes.
So we're on time for this, but we were late for the wrap-up of his evaluation. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you. So, as I was sharing before, I hope that the committee sees your comments reflected here, both in a couple ways. One, in the focus standards, where I'm going to be putting a lot of attention to, which we'll talk about in 1 minute. And then the other, in the goals specifically. And those things are obviously very much hand in glove and connected. But if there's something that you don't see here that you want to see, just let me know. But I did look very carefully through all of your feedback to make sure that we captured the what's important to the school committee and the work that we're doing moving ahead. What you will miss this year from our first slide is our little fidget spinner that had the what, the how, the whole child, the community, because we are implementing our new blueprint. So while it's still very much at the core of our work, our Blueprint 2.0 is really focused on ensuring that our portion of our graduate attributes, which are right at the top: character, citizenship, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking, the 5 C's. That is how we spell success in BMR, are very much at the forefront of our work moving forward. So the next piece to really highlight is the focus, or are the focus standards. And this was something we started a few years ago, I think after our first year together, thinking about how do we better get our work organized around a few specific pieces of the work and do a couple of things really well, instead of evaluating and having me focus on the 32 indicators that the state has put forward in their rubrics, which I haven't met a human being yet that can do all of those things well or focus on all those things at once. So I really was appreciative when we started this process, because it actually allows me and our team to get really focused in a couple of areas under each one of those standards. And so this year, and even as recent as last Friday, reconnecting with Aaron, going deeply through your feedback, the committee was super clear about where they wanted to see the focus this year, particularly as it related to these indicators and these standards, under these standards. So I literally went back and looked at the feedback, and I opened it up, and I literally listed like the number of times that each one of these things was mentioned by our school committee members. And what you're seeing here is the summary of that. So, like for instance, underneath instructional leadership, 6 different members, I think it was 6 or 5 or 6, mentioned assessment. And they mentioned this specific indicator. And so that says to me, let's think a little bit deeper about the types of assessment, how we're using our assessments, and what we're doing with that. And so you'll see that the summary here of focus standards is really connected directly back to your feedback and my evaluation. So if you're curious as to where these came from, you can go back and look and see, collectively what everybody had said. And what I then did was take these and I actually looked at the goals and looked at the through lines to make sure that I had all of that right and that it was aligned and connected. It should be easy for these focus standards to be the core of the work if we have the goals right? So if I don't have the goals right or I have these off, there's going to be a disconnect. So I went back to make sure that I had them right in terms of what you all shared, and I had them connected and anchored to one another. So underneath instructional leadership, there will be a focus on assessment and student learning this year. Underneath management and operations, there will be a focus on environment and human resource work. Underneath standard 3, engagement and family concerns. And then underneath professional culture, high standards and managing conflict. Now, for our newer members, and for anyone at home that's interested, there is a rubric that clearly defines what all of these 1C, 1F, 2A, 2B, what these focus standards are, what proficiency looks like. And so I'm using that as my benchmark to make sure I've got this right in terms of what does this work actually look like and sound like in practice. So I am going back to that rubric to ensure that I've got not just the right focus, but that I'm doing the right work within each one of those areas. That makes sense. I don't tend to typically read the slides to people, and I certainly don't want to do that tonight, but I do want to spend just a couple minutes on each slide briefly because I think it's important for our community to have a really good sense of where we're going with the work. The first district improvement goal, and there are 3, is really focused around creating a system that works for all students. This is really important, and I know that the committee and the community is very aware of this. But as we think about the importance of every single student, all 1,500 of them in our school district, and the similarities they have and the differences they have, we think about the importance of ensuring that we've made space for every one of them. There's not one student in our school system that does not matter and that is not important. And so we are taking on, at a deeper level, the work of creating a system and striving to create a system, because I will say striving, I don't think we are there, but that really looks at the kind of the ties that bind us, the similarities that we have, developing that sense of self-awareness to understand, not only ourselves, but others, and how do we work together best as a school community to be the best version of ourselves. And so if that sounded like a lot of gobbledygook, what it specifically means is what's written here in terms of kind of the what and the how we're going to do it, and more importantly, how we're going to look to measure this. I guess I would draw everybody's attention to the 4 bullet points in the middle, which is really about selecting the right materials. So this year we're looking at social studies curriculum, and we will be spending a lot of time on that. Our lead coach is facilitating that work. Ms. Colino, who is here this evening to talk about the health curriculum. Strengthening our collective capacity and understanding the differences within our school community and identifying the strengths that bring us together. And I know that, I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but that's a really important part. of the work. And I want to just share an example because I think recently there's been some conversation about some instances at the high school, that have been a challenge and that we're working on. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention we had a family in crisis over the weekend. It was very public. It was on social media, and I had reached out to the mother of that family. By the time I had reached out to her, she had heard from 4 or 5 different members on our team, and had already been incredibly overwhelmed by the support from the community that she and her children have received. So I want to mention that. And I wonder about that. We had a discussion with the principals today. Like, our community is incredible at that. We know how to do that. We know how to come together. We know how to support each other. We know how to really help one another kind of lift up when we're in a situation like that. And I think that is such a strong foundation. So I mention that because I think we have an incredible place to build from with this work. And now it's about just getting better at it, and how to make sure that in all occasions the best version of ourselves show up, and how do we support each other through all types of issues. And so I'm looking forward to this piece of the work. I think it's going to be just a really important part of how we work together as a community. The third bullet is really anchored in that idea of creating a safe space for all students. And what we're looking to do, and to our families that are tuning in and hearing this is going to be a challenge, but we need engagement. We need kids involved. And I say with the utmost respect to all of our families in our school community, we tend to have the same 100 kids that are doing everything. But we have 1,500 kids in our community. We need to expand that. We need more students involved in athletics and music and clubs and extracurriculars. So I urge our parents at home tuning in, get your kids involved. Get them off their phones, get them off their apps, get them off their video games. We have late buses, have them stay after school, have them engage in clubs and activities. I know the middle school is working and redesigning some of their clubs and offerings, and we can do that, but if we don't have kids participating, it doesn't matter. We've had full teams of kids we couldn't field this year. We couldn't field a varsity boys soccer team. That should not have happened. That shouldn't have happened. And it certainly isn't a finger-pointing piece. It's just to say we have incredible opportunities, but we've got to get the kids engaged. We've got to get them involved. Our students ran clubs this summer. Field hockey, soccer, football. We had 0 kids come out for the football. None. We had no. Coach Ugolo sat with our kids, our football kids, and we had 0 kids come out to any of the football clinics. Now, a little self-deprecation. I could see that if we didn't have a lot of runners come out, because it's 90 degrees and you may not want to run out in the heat, but I had 5 or 6 kids come out for my running group every Wednesday. The football team had none. And they tried advertising in tons of different ways. And we can field a football team. We had over 40 kids on it. So parents, if you're listening, your kids are going to tell you they don't want to. My kids do it all the time at home. You got to make them. We got to push our kids to get engaged and involved. We have the adults willing and ready. We got the opportunities. I don't want to sit here in front of this committee and say that we can't field the team again. I just don't want to do that. So we got a lot of work to do in that space, but we really need the community to partner with us in all of these different areas, music, athletics, and extracurriculars. And then promoting. We're doing a lot of promoting this year of our students and our staff. I hope people are noticing the increased social media presence that we have. We are trying like heck to get, we have such a great story to tell. We are an incredibly strong school system, small but strong, and we're going to keep putting the good word out there. So this goal is multifaceted. It looks at kind of multiple ends of what it means to create a system that works for all students. But we're really excited about going deep into this work.
Erin, did you have a question?
I did. So did Coach ask the people on the team for football why they didn't?
No, our team was there. It was the idea in the summer was working with our younger, right? So our high school teams, JV or varsity teams did a ton of outreach to our younger students to try to get them engaged and build the bench, and they just didn't show up.
Were they playing Express? Because I think Express had a summer league?
So the times that were offered were times that would not have been in conflict.
Okay.
You know,
I was
and
just asking, I was playing devil's advocate and saying, okay,
Nope.
well, maybe they didn't because they were involved in this thing.
I understand, and I understand there are, you know, there's summers are tough. There's all kinds of camps, and parents have work schedules, and you can't always get your kids the things. And again, not a finger pointing thing, but I just say it to mention that these were our kids out there on the fields, really trying to recruit and get their, you know, our younger kids to show up. So, you know, we will continue with that work, but we definitely need help from our families to get our students out of their comfort zone to engage. The other district goal that we have is, and you'll see kind of a theme here, it's also about cultivating, right? If you think about the first goal, it's really looking at cultivating our community, cultivating our students. Our second district improvement goal is really about cultivating our team. And by team, I mean the adults that are doing the work. Our leadership team has a philosophy in that you can't reach the kids without reaching the adults. We are a student-focused school system and have worked really hard to develop a student-first culture, but you can't do that without the adults being on board. And so we are looking very deeply at what are some of the best ways for us to put some additional systems and structures in place to support the adults that are actually doing the work alongside of us. There are two pieces that are not on here. And I just want to bring your attention to the kind of the measurement of this goal, and that'll be measured by the creation of new professional development opportunities, optional professional development modules, and I'll talk about that in a second. New design for our mentoring program, our new Unit C evaluation system, which the school committee approved. And we're going to be, you know, measuring all of this by the implementation of those pieces, and of course, our feedback on our survey results, which the committee gets at the end of the year. We send the results to all of you so you can see the good, the bad, and the ugly, so to speak. But there's a few other pieces I think that are important to mention. Our nurses are working on a new nursing staff orientation guide just for the nursing staff. So how do we onboard and support our new nurses to the district? Which might sound like not kind of a heavy lift or a big deal, but it kind of is. They're a little bit out of, you know, fish out of water in terms of their medical professionals in an educational kind of realm. And so they're working as a team to put together a brand new orientation guide for them. We have for the first time, a blueprint, so our district strategic plan monitoring and implementation team. And yesterday we brought together over 20 members for the first time that were from all of our school site councils. These were parents and teachers. You all know well that we're in one space together. It was a virtual meeting. It was the best way to get everyone together from all 4 buildings, parents all in one kind of virtual room talking about how they work to partner with us as a system and help implement and reach the goals in our blueprint. That was tremendous. We heard from elementary parents in the same breath as high school parents that said, hey, did you consider this? We can partner with you in this way. Let's work together on this project. We had PTO parents. We had parents that are not in the PTO that are very vocal sometimes about the work we're doing. We're bringing them in. We want them at the table. We want them part of the work. It was really pretty awesome to have them all in one space. So those two pieces are not included here, but I think it's important to mention them because we're bringing PK-12 parents and teachers and staff together. And I had the honor, and I will say honor, of teeing off that meeting and introducing kind of the concept and what we were doing together. The other piece that I just want to highlight, these optional professional development modules. We started them last week. Jenny Remke and I did the first round, so we trained. It was optional. You didn't have to come if you didn't want to. It was for Unit A staff, which is our educators, of which we have 150 total. We had almost 70 attend. We ran the training 3 times. Jenny and I did it twice at MES for the elementary teachers and then once here. And we had almost 70 staff attend. No stipends, no. They came because they were interested. It was on Educator Evaluation. In the section that I had the opportunity to do, which I thought was important, was to talk about learning walks and feedback, because that's the part that's can be the most intense when your evaluator's in the room and they're kind of watching your instruction and giving you feedback. And I actually did the training with them that we do with the principals. So they could see exactly how the principals are planning before they go into a classroom to visit, what they're doing when they're in the classroom, and how they execute after the classroom. So there was the full cycle, and they got the same training that the principals get, which I thought was really helpful. We got really good feedback and heard this week that there was an ask from our Unit A members to say, when are the next dates? What are you doing next? So there's interest. We're looking at training on special ed, ELL, how to work with challenging students and kind of like some behavior management work, and a few other topics that we're getting right from the teachers. So we're excited about that and see where that goes from there. In the Unit C evaluation, we had an opportunity to train all of our Unit C staff. And one of the pieces of feedback we heard directly from them is how much they're looking forward to sitting down and doing this with their supervisor multiple times a year. Because if you remember, that's what that system is built around now. It's not a checklist at the end of the year. So team cultivation, I heard a lot of feedback from the committee about, we got to work on morale. We got to keep people here. What are we doing to kind of improve in those spaces? While I won't pretend that this is going to be a magic bullet, it certainly is a good step, I think, in the right direction as we continue to work our way through that. Facilities. This is our third district improvement goal. And it's interesting if you kind of think about it, we kind of have like the students in the community, the adults that are doing the work, and here's the space that they're doing the work in, right? So it kind of makes sense if you think about it from a whole perspective. This year, the goal is really focused around both a long-range plan and a short-term capital outlay plan. We have a project in the pipeline. We will know in December if we've been accepted in or not. But I want to be very public about saying we can't wait to find out what is going to happen with the new, if there is a new project. We have too much space at the end of the day. And so we have some work that needs to be done this year, frankly, around analyzing that space, seeing what our real needs are, what could be some pretty significant cost savings in the facilities realm while we're waiting to hear about a potentially new project. Because as the committee knows, even if we are accepted in, we're 5+ years out from a new building. And we really can't wait to do that level of analysis. So you'll see that in this goal, we're focused on both the short term and the long range.
Now, you just said something that caught my interest. Not that all of your goals don't catch my interest, but you said cost savings and too much space. So tell me what that looks like.
So we have buildings that are running at half capacity as far as student enrollment. We are running too many buildings. We just are at the end of the day. We've got whole sections of certain buildings with few to no students in them, or teachers with 2 classrooms because we have that much space, so they can have 2 adjoining classrooms.
But then, okay.
So we will be paying to heat those spaces. We will be paying to have electricity running through those spaces. We have a lot of room.
So what does it look like to figure that out and put something into, I feel like we have to start those conversations. We have to start the research on what space is available or unused or underused. What would you need from us to try to look at that a little deeper?
Well, with this goal, and if the goals work for the committee and they're approved, I can start that work now. So at the direction of the committee, I can start doing that research. We can start doing that research.
Well, and that's always a conversation that comes up during budget season too, which begins very soon.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you feel like it's something you need before budget season so we could look at a budget effectively, or?
So if I could wave a wand and have a timeline,
Yeah.
if that's what you're kind of asking, I think from a budgetary perspective, we start the process late October, early November with the cost center managers. But as the committee knows, we have one meeting in December. And at that meeting, we forecast our budget priorities. We don't usually have numbers put to them, but we say, we need a math program. We're going to need, this is what we're hearing from the cost center manager we're going to need for staffing. It would be best for us to have that analysis and information for that meeting.
Okay.
Because in January, as you all know, we are actually in the weeds of the numbers. We're literally looking at pennies and dollars. And if we're going to get to that level of work in January, we would need to have this analysis done before that, which would be the December meeting. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay.
So by approving these goals tonight, you will start a process where this says this plan may include more immediate school facility reorganization opportunities for the district. You're going to start a process looking at all
Analyzing
of
the
our-
numbers that go
all
along
of our
with that.
Yes.
facilities
Yep.
and space.
Drawing the picture of what the short-term plan would be with the long-term plan of if we do or aren't included in the MSBA thing.
But I think
Also
this
know
goal
where-
shows, regardless of that, of whether we're accepted or not, we have to look at our
Right.
space. So, okay.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Tammy?
Then we shift to our learning acceleration goal, which is really, and if you look at the last two goals are really hand in glove. So the learning acceleration goal is, again, we focus it in kind of two buckets. That's the curriculum and the instruction. Our big focus for this year is implementing our new math program with integrity, PK to 12. As you all know, we have a new core program. And to also select a new social studies program. I just want to give a kind of a forecasting with social studies that what we come up with for our final product might look pretty different than what we've done in the past. We've used a ton of research that has existed for core math and literacy programs. There is zero on social studies. So we need to really kind of do that process different. So I'm just kind of forecasting that now. When we start giving updates to the committee on where we are with this, if you're like, oh, this looks and feels a little different, it probably is because it is. And it's going to look different at the end too. But we are going to do our due diligence. The committee is starting, I think, in 2 weeks to start delving into the materials and resources that we're using now. But so that's really the curriculum end of it. And then as far as instruction, we're remaining focused on our data cycles. We're remaining focused on strengthening our core instruction using our RTI blocks. But there is a very unique focus here that I want to bring to everyone's attention. If you look at the 4 bullets at the bottom of the slide, you'll see grades 6 and 7. You'll see students meeting some of grade level expectations. Those are the kids that are in that partially meeting. And by the way, like almost half of our kids are there. Our percentage of kids not meeting grade level standards is very, very low, very, very low. But you saw the meeting and exceeding expectation numbers tonight. So you can kind of see the rest of those students are by and large right in that middle bracket, which is about half. So we have a ton of work to do to figure out how do we really help those students close that gap. We've done a really good job in most cases of lifting that kind of bottom tier, but we really need to focus on those students in that partially meeting. So we're bringing a lot of attention to that. The third bullet might be something that seems really kind of nuanced, but this is, again, like a very public conversation that we need to have. We need to do some work with our boys, frankly, specifically around literacy. On average, about 60 to 65% of our girls are at grade level standards or beyond with literacy. On average, about 30% of our boys are at grade level standards with literacy, on average. That is a huge, significant gap between that are genders. So you are going to hear a lot in our school improvement work, what we're doing to help address some of those issues. We got to get books in the hands of our boys. And parents, I'm reaching out to you again on this issue. And I have 2 boys at home. It's torture to take the video game thing out of the controller out of their hands and put a book in and do reading a book with your kid. It's just a lot. I get it. It's a lot. But when we have only a third, in most grades, less than a third of our boys at grade level with reading, that to me is a crisis. That's a huge, huge issue that needs to be addressed. That's going to take all of us to really get on board in tackling that. So we're going to hear more about that from our principals in the next couple of weeks. But we're going to keep seeing this theme come up. We've got to focus in on our boys with literacy. And then, of course, our students with special needs remains a focus. And again, there's good news and bad news of that story every year, because when they exit, they're no longer in that data. And so I know Ms. PG is going to keep working on that analysis and making sure we capture the same group of kids so we can compare apples to apples when we look at student performance in that space. And then, of course, our student learning goal. This year is a little bit different. I decreased the percent that we're looking to increase our meeting and exceeding numbers by. I said at least 5%. I'm hoping it's more. But we're going to keep the target at least 5%, assuming the goals are approved, and the SGP, student growth percentile, at least 50%, again, as we continue to work on our rebound from everything we've been moving through the past couple of years. But again, you're seeing at the bottom a focus in on those 4 areas. Grade 6 and 7, we know we have a lot of work to do. It doesn't mean grade 8 we don't, but we see an uptick once the kids are getting into 8th grade. But we need to really focus in on grade 6 and 7 from a learning perspective. And then, of course, the other 3 areas that I mentioned before. That is an overview of my draft goals.
Okay. So like I said, it isn't the norm that we go from closing your evaluation but to accepting your new goals, but definitely appreciate all this work and taking into consideration everything that was asked of you with all of your focus standards and the creation of these goals. So I'm looking for a motion to approve Jason's 22-23 superintendent goals as presented.
So moved.
Was that you, Dan?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Okay, motion made by Dan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kerry. Any questions for Jason or requests for the goals as presented?
These goals align so much with all of the conversations we've been having in so many of our meetings. I'm excited to see where these go moving forward, because they've been the themes that keep coming up and coming up. So, excellent job kind of narrowing in on all that.
Your feedback is just so important. I need the committee to know how much I value that and really, work to make sure to capture that.
And just going on your past, I won't say, but going on, how you've taken your goals and implemented the work and seeing the evidence come through. I don't know what we'll work on next year.
Oh, there's always more.
I know, I'm joking, but this is big because there's a lot in here.
There is.
And I know that you can conquer it. So, any other comments or questions for Jason? Okay, so all those in favor of approving the 22-23 superintendent goals as presented, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous.
And I'll send those out to our school community and post them tomorrow.
And the work has already started, but thank you for getting it out
Thank
there.
you for having me change my entire course and strategy. This is great. And then just a quick update. The Blackstone Valley Excel, that's the career pathways opportunities that we have for our students. And I just wanted to remind our community about those opportunities for our high school kids. And again, that's the collaboration we have with the school districts in the Valley, where we open up our high schools to each other for our students at no cost to take courses in each other's school as after-school options for credit. I'm excited to share that we have students in computer science, cybersecurity, welding, manufacturing, and video production. And the course that we're running this year, which this semester that's had a lot of interest, is Food for Thought. Carol Conti's running it, which is an integration of the history of food, which is actually an awesome course. The kids love it. Our own students love it, and it's full. So we've got a lot of interest, and have heard from alumni. They've actually reached out to say, would there be an opportunity for us to engage? I wish I had taken, the welding course was the one that came up while I was there. Is there an opportunity for that? So I'm working with the superintendent group to find a way to open this up to our alumni who are at home and kind of finding their way and figuring out what they want to do. And maybe a course in virtual welding or cybersecurity might just kind of get their toe in the water to see if it's something that they would be interested in. So for anyone that's tuning in at home, parents, if you have questions, high school parents, if you have questions about it, don't hesitate to reach out to our middle school families. We have more opportunities than you're probably even aware of. So BMR is absolutely the right choice, particularly not just for your academic focus, but also for your career pathways if you're interested. And any alumni that might be listening, or if you know of any alumni that are local and at home and aren't really quite sure what they want to do and they don't want to spend a ton of money on different classes, we may have an opportunity for them to take some of these courses before they go out and enroll in an associate's program.
And when are these held?
Bachelor's. After school or at night. So they're different days and times, but they're usually once a week. Tuesdays, Thursdays tend to be the nights. And these Saturday sessions, I think, are the most exciting part, frankly, because the coordinator for this program that we got through a grant pulls all of the kids together, and she does workforce training and development with them. So she actually has a workforce training curriculum. They do resume building, they do job shadowing, they do mock interviews. This isn't just take a welding course. Like, she pulls all of the kids from the Valley together at Hopedale. That's where her office is. And she does all of this work with them there. And again, this is all grant funded. We wrote a $500,000 grant to do this. There were 4 of us that did, and the kids are just loving it. So it's one of those things where it's almost hard for some kids because there's so many things they're doing, so they can't necessarily get to all the Saturday sessions. But we've heard just some incredible feedback on that. So any parents tuning in, we will be running a spring semester too. So, and then to add to that, we opened our site. We wrote a grant, you might remember, to pay our own students to work in our elementary schools during the school year and over the summer. We couldn't fill all of the seats with our own kids, so we actually opened it up to students that were interested in education, and we had a couple of students from Hopedale at the complex that we paid to work with our kids this summer. So we are being as creative and innovative as possible with that program.
All good news.
Doesn't get a lot of attention, but it's
Yeah.
a really great opportunity.
I wonder if there would be another way to get it out to the community.
Yeah, they have a pretty awesome
Online.
web page. But if I think of a way to get that link out to people.
Is
I
it something
do
we
that.
could start having our principals include in there?
Sure.
Their
Yep.
newsletters.
Or share the link on the social media page.
Yeah, or even the Enlighteners.
Yep, we can include that.
Way to
The
highlight it.
alumni
once.
especially, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Thank you very much for that.
And that's my report.
All right. Thank you so much. And we'll move back to school committee items. We've already finished the superintendent evaluation. Bargaining unit requests. I think you have some information for us on
Yes.
that, the Unit A.
Yes, so we have 2. Under Unit A, as you remember, we put the content lead teachers at the high school, which also feeds into that team cultivation work. And so that team has been selected and they're off and running. They're doing great work with the leadership at the high school. They are part of the leadership at the high school. The middle school has team leaders who have done incredible work with Ms. Catilla already as far as helping to kind of reset the focus here. And we were, which I was really happy to hear because it really does go into the cultivation of the teamwork. The elementary teachers are very interested in having grade level team leaders. And being able to have that team leader function as a representative of their grade level on, because remember now we're all together, right? So there's 4, 5, or 6 teachers at a particular grade level, and so they're interested in having a very focused piece of work around the teaching and learning data, being part of that school leadership team. I'm eager to unpack that. But I'm reading you very well, Ms. Lemieux. And they're very eager to be part of, and they are, frankly, in a lot of ways, the instructional leadership team in a very formalized way. And so we're looking to do 2 things with this. One, we want to have an opportunity to work with our elementary teachers to create a formal teacher leadership structure for them. Again, we think about growth, retention, and all of those pieces. That's definitely a part of it. In the middle school, we're looking to discuss how to kind of reorganize those positions a little bit differently. And so the request tonight is for the committee to allow me to go into conversations, formal conversations with the Unit A team on that.
And that would just become an MOU until we bargain again.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. So looking for a motion to allow Jason to enter into conversations with Unit A about a team leader stipend for PK to 8.
So moved.
Thanks, Tammy.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Tammy and second by Erin. And now, questions for Jason?
I'm sorry. Could you just clarify, was that a leader at every single grade level? Or
Yes.
was it one person for Kate, for the elementary?
No, so what we're looking at is having a grade level team leader. So like a team leader for first grade, second grade, third grade,
One at
fourth
each
grade,
level.
fifth grade, one at each grade level.
And I think in the past, it's something we've never discussed because our grades were split. Now all these teachers are working together in, one section of a building. And they're probably already doing this work.
Is that not what our coaches are doing at the elementary level? Like, I think a grade level person at every grade level is excessive. We have this is just, again, my opinion, but we have coaches that we're going above and beyond what we would normally do in a very confined grade area level system, and to pay another stipend, I don't know what we're thinking about, what range, but for each grade level, to me that seems super excessive, but that's just me.
But I think it's the elementary buildings or this says pre-K to 8, but we already have team leaders.
Yeah, we want to rework the.
You want to change the language. So it's really pre-K, it's preschool to 5th grade.
We don't have.
That we have nothing. This would be comparable to content leads that we have at high school and team leaders. So what are we missing by not having it for those grade levels?
Yeah, so we don't have a formal teacher leadership structure at those grade
But
You're
levels.
leading
then
5
you're going with
teachers.
the coach.
How many teachers is the most at a grade level? So we're talking about paying a stipend for someone to lead 5 teachers.
Yeah, and by lead, they represent, so let me give you an example. Maybe something concrete would be more helpful. So for instance, we have an instructional leadership team that meets twice a month, right? So the idea is that this formalized position would include that piece of work. So if you're the team leader, you're at the ILT meeting. And you're there with the coach and the principal, and you're doing all the data work, you're developing all the professional development and implementing that professional development for the staff. You're doing the summer planning and programming work. If you think back to The content lead teachers for the high school, and it's hard to visualize, but essentially that work was broken down into like curriculum, instruction, data. If you took the curriculum piece out, because they're not, content focused on like literacy and math and science, it's really the rest of that work that we're looking to have done.
And where do you think this workload would fall compared to the content leads for the high school and the team leaders? So and I'm asking that for a financial reason because
Sure.
our content lead high school teachers are paid a different stipend than our team.
Yes, they
leads.
are. Yep.
So we're not saying we're throwing everyone the same amount and entering into this. What is your thought on where that would fall?
So my sense is that it's probably about 2 hours a month per month outside of the school. If I had to give a number, I would say it's probably somewhere along the lines of 20 hours of work during the year. And then over the summer, probably maybe 2 days.
And what are we getting from our content and team leaders right now?
We have that. We do that level of work. Plus they do the summertime. But their language was different because they also have an opportunity to be freed up during the day. So which would be different. And all that needs to be bargained. So I don't, I can't say for sure what they would be interested in, but I can say in terms of time, what do I think we would need? I think we would need something like 20 hours during the school year and probably 12 hours during the summer.
But that's 8, 9 teachers.
Well, the middle school, we already have those positions. So what we would look to do is just reorganize the responsibilities of those individuals. Those stipends are already in the contract and they already get them.
So a bargaining language on those.
So 7.
It would be grades.
PK, K.
Yep.
Do we have 2
1 through
per
5.
grade in middle school? There's 5.
Each team has a team leader.
So that's 5 right now, right?
Yeah, it changes. I
Are
think
there
based on
5?
the structure. There's 5, right, Mary? Yeah.
So that's
So there's currently 5, and this would add 7 more?
7.
5.
5,
Would it be-
1
Grades
through
1 through
5,
5,
pre-K
kindergarten,
and K.
PK.
That's 7 additional stipends
If that's
for
what,
less than
if that is
600 kids.
what would be agreed upon. Remember, we haven't bargained
Do you know
any of
what
this
they're
because
asking for?
no,
I
because
know.
you haven't authorized me to do that yet.
well, there's obviously been conversation.
I'm kind of a rule follower, and I don't do those things until you tell me I can.
No previews available?
So can I ask, are we looking for a motion to allow Jason to enter discussions for a potential MOU that would come back to us for discussion before approved? Is that how that works or not?
We would have to approve it, yeah.
We still have to approve it, so we can't get any further information
Unless
until
we
you
let
have
him-
those conversations.
Unless we let him talk about
Right,
it.
yeah. Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the Unit 8,
Entering into discussion of,
allowing the superintendent to enter into discussions with the Unit 8.
so
We already did that, right?
without rewinding what I said, I'll retract the motion I made to allow Jason to enter into an MOU. So we'll
I'm
do.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
All right, I get it.
Tammy,
I'll take back my second.
okay. No, you made the
First,
motion.
I'll
and
take back my
Erin-
motion.
Okay.
Sorry.
So we're striking the first motion. We're just going to go with Dan's.
I
No, that's
got lost
okay.
in the conversation there for a second. 'Cause I was,
No, that's okay, because I think it's better explained right now that we got to full circle to that.
yeah.
So your motion is to allow the superintendent to enter into a discussion
To enter into the discussion with Unit A.
with Unit
In
A.
regards to the team leader stipends.
Right, and then to be brought back to the school committee for further discussion.
Can I ask a question?
So motion made by Dan, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Dan and second by Erin, and now you can ask your question.
Could you help explain why we would need this level of a team lead in the PK and kindergarten area?
why do we need a leader, like a teacher leader in that?
I'm not saying that they're insignificant because they're not
No, I
by any
understand,
means,
yeah.
but
I just
I'm
wanna
just
make sure I
trying to
understand.
Are
understand.
you saying those two grades specifically?
Yeah.
Compared to 1 through 5?
Yeah, just because, I mean, I feel like, yes, there's curriculum behind each of those grades, but I'm trying to understand the number of students in pre-K and the number of students in kindergarten. Do
Yeah.
they warrant?
It may not warrant one at each grade level. It could be one for PKK, right? I don't know, but I would stand strongly in the notion that I think teacher leadership opportunities are really important. And I think early literacy, particularly as we think about male students, right?
Yeah.
And really working with our youngest kids, because that's where it starts, and really working intentionally to get books in the hands of kids. And I'm not saying this is exactly what they would do, right? But as we're thinking about where this work all starts, it starts in PKK. But that being said, I'm not sitting here thinking that we necessarily would need a PK person, a K person. I don't know. I don't know what that would look like at the end of the day.
When you, and then, sorry, one more thing. When you come back to us with a new proposal after speaking to Unit A, would you be able to provide what our current structure looks like how many team leads we have in each building and how many teachers are they responsible for with how many students?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, any other questions for the motion at hand? Okay, all those in favor of approving Jason to enter into a discussion on the possibility of a team leader stipend for PK to 8, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, yes, opposed.
And any
I don't know, I've
abstentions?
never done that, actually.
Never opposed?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay, so.
I'm usually agreeable, apparently.
Okay, so we have, motion passes, we have 6 yeses and 1 no. Okay, and the next item is a Unit C kitchen staff shoe purchase.
Yes, the food service director is looking to purchase footwear for our kitchen.
And this is a one-time purchase.
One-time
She has
purchase.
money available because
Yes.
we have federally funded lunches.
Yep.
I assume.
So she would like to be able to purchase comfortable footwear for the cafeteria workers that
Comfortable, safe footwear.
I was just gonna say, are they safety kitchen shoes or something?
Must be.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so good.
They wear their own shoes right now?
Yes, they do. Their shirts are purchased as part of the uniform, but their shoes are purchased individually for work.
Well, I can
Make a
say,
motion for
having
that.
my son work in a restaurant since last winter, that his shoes are pretty disgusting, so, and they do need the safety
The skin.
sole on there, so, I guess I'm surprised we don't already do that, but, so looking for a motion to allow the, purchase of the shoes for our kitchen staff.
So moved.
And that will be from funds in the cafeteria?
Yes, they're yes,
Mine.
they will buy their own. Yep.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Chuck and second by Dan. Any other questions for Jason on the shoe purchase? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous, thank you. And then moving on, we have a field trip request, which, do you have that?
Yes, it's in, do you have the Christmas Carol?
Oh, so I thought that was me.
Oh,
Field trip request. Is that not me?
on the 27th, but you've been here all night.
Yeah.
I'm on the, I'm
I
on
don't
the
know, Erin, if you
27th?
want to.
I thought I was,
Yes,
oh.
that's okay.
Well, we would love
What
to
do you
hear
think?
your field trip
I'm
request.
sorry.
That's okay.
I thought you were just here to tune in.
To
and
support you.
I was saying it was
and
just
moral support for you and
A
your
blessing there.
evaluation.
There's also no.
Congratulations, by the way. I really, I was sent an invitation for this meeting, just so you know. Okay. Are we really, I can come back.
No, we
No,
would love
please,
to hear your
please.
field trip request.
Okay. I am here to request permission to take our 8th grade students or the 8th grade students who wish to go to Washington, D.C. It's a trip that I understand has been a tradition for the Hartnett Middle School students. The dates we are looking at are Monday, June 5th, Tuesday, June 6th, and Wednesday, June 7th. So 3-day trip. It is a jam-packed itinerary. They keep those kids moving from 7 a.m. till 9:30, so they can't get into any trouble. They're too tired. And it supports our 8th grade civics curriculum. They're visiting places like the Lincoln Memorial, the Vietnam Memorial, the Korean War Veterans Memorial, Arlington National Cemetery, the 9/11 Pentagon Memorial, Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. If availability exists, we'll go to the U.S. Holocaust Museum. We see lots of the museum, the Yellow Magazine.
National Geographic.
Oh, Smithsonian. Totally the wrong magazine, but they got me where I wanted to go. They got me where I wanted to go. The Smithsonian Museum. So things like the Museum of American History, Natural History. I mean, really and truly a jam-packed trip. Parents are already asking about it. The cost per student is $625. We have fundraising opportunities ready to implement. We're just waiting on the official approval. And I apparently jumped the gun 2 weeks, so.
No, you're fine. And this will be coach buses.
Yes, we're going through Capital Tours. It is coach buses. The cost is based on 40 people per bus. I believe last year they sent around 40 people, but I think it was a smaller group than usual because of the vaccination requirements for DC at the time, which I believe have been lifted since.
So there's not a vaccination requirement?
As far as I know, there is not.
I was just there in August and there wasn't.
Yeah.
Not for anything, but even the masks were optional.
Yeah.
So
Was that a school
It was.
requirement? Not a
No,
It's a
no,
Board
it was
of
a
Health
tour, it was a
requirement.
Washington
Or bus.
DC tour company museum
It was
requirement.
our Board of Health.
in the spring.
It was the
the board. Yeah.
public nurse who required it, because I had inquired
Oh,
with her
okay,
about it.
never mind.
Okay.
I misunderstood. I just know that last year's numbers were lower than usual, in part because of vaccination and masking requirements. But those are lifted this year, so I'm hoping we would get more than what we had last year.
So the town's public health nurse is not,
It wasn't required for the band trip.
but it was
so-
required for DC.
Right. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, so last year at this time, it was required for DC. Then when the band came to us in the spring, it was not required anymore, and we've never heard that it's been re-implemented.
No, I don't
Because we did
anticipate
check
that
for
being-
band in that May or June timeframe.
Yes.
Either-
Yeah. I think it was that late spring.
It was late spring or very early summer. Teacher chaperones, or are there parents?
I'm assuming we'll be going with parent chaperones. I'll try to get some teacher chaperones. It's a pretty big ask for teachers.
We've always had teachers in
We've
the
always
past.
had
Have we?
teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Chaperones travel for free at a rate of 1 chaperone per 10 paying students. So
Okay.
I'm sure we'll have teachers and parents. I plan on going.
Okay.
We like to hear that, just for the
Yeah,
record.
and I think it's important for the teachers to be there and give those 8th graders that independence away from their parent chaperone. But I'd be interested on any feedback you get from the teachers on, being able to participate. In the past, it has been a teacher-based, I think in the last 2 or 3 years, well, we didn't even go in the last 2. Last year they went, I honestly don't know what the ratio was, but it was a much smaller group.
Yep.
It seemed that it had been harder, that the parents had been outnumbering the teachers. So I personally would like to see that come back around and be teacher-based. But if you could bring us some feedback on whether they are able to do
feedback
it.
from one staff So I don't know that I have enough to
Yeah.
be representative at this point, but
Yeah.
I certainly will seek some feedback from staff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot, these are
It is.
long days.
Yes, it is.
It's
But I
time away
can tell
from
you,
family, and
When
it's,
our older kids went, there were no parents. It was the teachers, and they were, there's a special bond there, and it makes that trip a different experience when it's the teachers. So, again, I ask you for that feedback, and if it's a direction that we need to have another conversation just to get those teachers on board. Obviously, they're paid for, but, what do we need to do to make it that kind of experience for the kids?
I will solicit feedback and get back to you.
Okay.
As even 22 years ago when I went, it was
It's teachers.
teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can tell you before COVID, with other changes in this building, it had slowed down. It had, parents were never even allowed to go.
Oh,
So, with
okay.
that being said,
Because we would have been
let
there.
us know what we need to do. No, it would have been a different experience for the kids. You wouldn't have been there.
How do you feel about subbing?
What? Wait, you want me?
Sure. I don't have any right now.
Oh,
so if
you
I
don't
take
wanna let them
teachers-
go.
If I take teachers out of the building, I have to have someone teach the ones who are left
June.
behind. So
You can.
I-
all the kids
I'm
are going
looking
with them.
at-
We'd have to
No,
volunteer.
all the
We
kids
can't
are going to
participate.
go.
I'm looking at 7 very capable adults in the room right now. Super
have
quick
volunteer
onboarding
subs?
process. You let me know anytime. You are welcome.
But you're forgetting that the entire 8th grade is going on this field trip with all of their teachers, so you don't need subs in the rooms with the kids gone. Just
Well, we
saying. That's the goal. It is an experience to be had. I mean, I've had 3 kids go. It was very sad last year when I know it was a missed opportunity for some kids based on that vaccine. Hopefully their parents get them there and experience it at least in some way. But this is a big field trip that kids look forward to.
Yeah.
And like you said, it does line up with our curriculum. So
Yeah.
let us know what needs to be done to get, that higher participation number and our staff to be there for the kids. So we're looking for a motion to approve the 8th grade field trip to Washington, D.C., June 5th through the 8th. Capitol Tours. They're
Are
returning
they
on the 8th.
returning on the 8th?
They're returning on the 8th.
Returning on the 7th.
7th, I thought.
Sorry, I was trying to add that day in
Yeah, 5th, 6th, 7th.
there. So June 5th through June 6th. The cost of $625, fundraising opportunities for everyone. And that price is based on 40 kids per bus. So I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Second. Sorry,
Motion
Dan.
made by Ted and second by Tammy. Any other questions for Mary or comments?
I would say try to make the Holocaust Museum a point. It's something I'll never forget, and that was the only time I've been there.
I think the only reason it says if available is they're one of the few places you have to get tickets in advance. So if I can book with them now, we ought to be able to get those tickets booked in advance. So, yeah.
This includes meals and
It includes some meals. Some meals are not covered, so breakfast is covered. The 2 days we're in DC. There's a lunch and dinner covered on that one day we're there for the full day.
And they usually
So-
collect money for the dinner ride home.
Yeah, it's like the ride there and the ride home that's not covered, but everything else is.
but the kids are usually told to have
Yeah,
a certain
we'll
amount of money.
we'll absolutely prep them for all of that.
A dinner cruise or a dinner.
We have, let's see, we have dinner at the Pentagon City Mall on Tuesday. I could see we have dinner at Harriet's on Monday. I don't know what that is. Do you know what Harriet's is?
I was just there. I don't think I went to Harry.
I didn't go to Harriet. I was just there too in August. When were you there?
First week, we had a great time. Yeah,
When
whole
was
family.
I there?
We all
I
came back
think
to
I
COVID.
think we were in DC at the same
We
time.
did, no joke.
If you heard two
And neither
kids-
one of you went to Harriet's?
I know, what are we thinking?
Well, it must,
Maybe
it
it's where I
has
gotta
to come
call it,
off the
well, thanks.
itinerary. Clearly, if it's not cool enough for
don't
you
know.
two, we can't send
So
our
we
kids
do,
there.
we have dinner at Harriet's, whatever Harriet's is. We have dinner at the Pentagon City Mall. I don't see anything about a dinner cruise, but we do have a ghost tour of Alexandria in there, which sounds pretty cool.
Okay.
So.
There's usually like a little semi-formal event.
Oh, how cute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they did it last year. So.
No, well, there became issues because when Justin Cameron was here, he was able to convince the tour crews that we should have a
floor.
whole section or floor,
They had the
and so
floor.
there wasn't intermingling with other groups.
Oh, yeah.
And then at some point, that became harder to do,
Yeah.
and then there was more concern with mingling
Yep.
of groups.
But they went away from it. They didn't do the dinner cruise anymore. The
Then they did
year
something
Amanda
else.
went, they did, they had just like a hall. They had a formal sit-down dinner. Not, I didn't say formal, but like sundresses and, you know, a shirt, a button-down shirt for the
Yeah.
boys. So,
Maybe that's Harriet's. I don't know. We'll have to look up Harriet's.
all right. Okay, so the motion is to approve the 8th grade field trip request. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
And
Any abstentions?
I'm sorry, could I just have a
Sure.
request? Could we have a copy of the itinerary
Yes.
at
Sure.
some point?
Yep.
Because I like that saved.
Absolutely. So I am getting back to you with a copy of the itinerary and feedback from the teachers on how we can entice them to being part of this experience. Yes?
If you send me that, I send them weekly updates on Fridays.
Oh,
I can
okay.
include, I can put your info right in there for you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. And then I think we have another field trip request for A Christmas Carol,
Yes.
but I don't.
Sorry to crash the
This
party.
one's much easier. It's just
Thank
that
you.
Thank
one
you.
of our
Very
high school-
excited.
Thank you so much, Mary. One of our high school teachers is looking to take a group of students to the Christmas Carol in Woonsocket.
The only question I had, motion to,
The motion to
Approve
approve
that.
the
Second.
Christmas Carol. Okay, motion made by Tammy and second by Kerry. Questions?
question was what was the cost? I think the cost line was blank. I'm not looking at it right now, but
There's no
I'm scanning
cost
it now to
listed.
see if I can find it.
is it free?
I don't see a cost, yeah,
Right,
listed.
oh, I was
Yeah.
gonna say right above your thumb is where it should be.
Yeah, no, it looks like there's no cost.
blank.
I think we're using our own van. Is that right?
It says a bus for.
We're not using our van?
It's 28 kids. so-
For all students.
Oh, right, sure.
But I was when I followed up, there is a cost.
Oh, there is, okay.
We're not
You know what the
missing
cost
it?
is?
Is it not in the
I don't,
packet?
I think she said it
It is in the packet.
cover
$20?
cost of the transportation and the ticket.
Okay.
$20 covers transportation and a ticket. I'm gonna ask Tim how what special deal he got. That sounds great.
Okay. Any other questions? All
I
those-
guess I do have a question for Jill. So if we have to have a special bus for handy,
Well, we have
wheelchair
our van
access.
for that.
Oh, the van is for the wheelchair access.
For students who require a special accommodation. We're gonna be able to use our van, but if there are 28 students, our van won't.
It won't cover it. Okay.
I'm assuming it does say, a van for a specific, student who requires it. Assuming the rest of them will go on the bus. 'Cause it says at the top, transportation required number of buses, 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
It appears as if there's a group that's gonna go on a larger bus, but we do have some students that may require some special accommodations.
Sure.
We can't accommodate that with our van.
Okay. So other students will be on the, I just, from reading it, I wanted to make sure that poor student wasn't traveling alone to the show, that other people would come off the bus to accommodate him. Okay. Like driving Miss Daisy. Okay.
We make sure of that, but no, and I will follow up as well, just to ensure. But
Okay.
I do know that our van, we've already gotten time with some fellows to ensure that our vans, because you know, our vans now was a great purchase. You know, we have the morning runners, our midday nap, and we're able to work it out to accommodate students who require specialized.
Perfect.
Okay, any other questions for the Christmas Carol field trip? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And that is unanimous for December 9th.
Thank you.
And last on our school committee items, we have the MASC conference. The dates are November 2nd through November 5th. I did include this part in an email to you guys too, but just to remind everyone, this conference is available to any of us that would like to attend. You would sign up through the MASC website and make sure Stephanie knows for billing purposes. Jason is attending the whole time?
Wednesday night and Friday morning.
Okay.
Till Friday morning. So
Last year he presented, but this year
No.
you're attending.
I get to attend.
The theme this year is promoting equity, diversity, and inclusion, which is something we've have been focusing on a lot here with Jason and his goals. So I'm sure you'll bring back some great information, but I'm sure you'll be able to share some with them too for the work you've done. So if anyone is interested, again, you can just let Stephanie know and sign up for that. There is a deadline for it. We've already missed the early registration. But we do have money in our budget to cover the conference for ourselves. And that is the conclusion of school committee items. Moving on to report of the business office. Thank you, Deirdre, for your patience.
Quite welcome. You have a report in your packet this evening. Speaking of goals, some of my goals are to work out some of the timing related to how the report gets produced. Specifically this month, we've been working with our auditors. We have auditors in the house auditing FY21, and I have them auditing FY22. So we've got 2 audits going on right now, and I'm working very, very closely with them. You have a report in front of you that was part of your packet, and on your report, it was dated 10/4. And then Deirdre was in her office 10/5. And Deirdre has done $353,000 worth of journal entries that aren't reflected on your report. And the reason why those journal entries were done was this was your end of the year audited financials for your end of the year rollover, that these adjustments had to be made.
No,
sorry.
I just sold one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is that a new one?
No.
Oh.
No. The one that Jason had gotten out to your packet, we had a holiday Monday, and then the packets go out the door before I can chase someone and grab them and say, wait a minute, I'm not done yet.
I believe he sent it to us in the email.
Okay.
Is what, if that's what you
10,
printed.
11.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's the email he sent with us.
So that kind of,
Yep.
so the auditors have been in, and I am working again with 2 years of audits. The first audit for the end of the year rollover transactions have been done. And what I am doing is working with staff one-on-one, bringing, for example, I see Scott here. And the goals that we have with facilities and facilities management are budgetary with Scott. As I work with Scott, I tell Scott that I don't want to turn him into an accountant, but we're going to work on our facilities budgets, our maintenance of plants budgets, the procurement of those budgets. When you're dealing with facilities management, we're also dealing with Chapter 30B, which is your procurement law in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You should have a certified school business official or facilities manager employed in your district for those purchases, as well as MCPPO, which is Massachusetts Certified Public Purchasing Official. So those are 2 requirements that public schools have for the position, for the person in this position, or the person in that position, or both. So Scott and I have been spending a lot of time working on budgets and numbers and function codes and all sorts of stuff that I can kind of move things from the office that they were in and kind of we've created file cabinets and what records should be, how they should be by fiscal year, and some things like that. That work has been alongside and simultaneous with the auditor's work. And a lot of the work that was done this summer was facilities related, as it typically is in your public schools, because you get summertime to do all of this work. So that work is done, at least from the auditor's perspective. And I can try to answer any questions that you might have on your report. The highlights that I think are here are a few things that I could at least point out and bring to your attention. First of all, in your school committee area, your function code 1110, the first line item, is in deficit $26,000. That's the very first school committee on the top. That's because I asked the auditors to also audit last year. While they're here, if we can get all of these audits done together, we can also identify any purchasing issues that we have, any procurement issues that we have. If secretaries aren't processing something appropriately, we can do some professional development. So we ask them to come in and audit us all together, give us all our audit reports, and then we can come up with an action plan to address anything within those audit reports. It's a lot of work for everyone to be doing, but it gives you a wonderful multi-year picture about where you should be going. It's the same data analysis that Jason is doing.
So are you saying that we are it's actually $27,000 in the negative because we're conducting 2 audits, or they found something?
I am saying that of the $26,000 that shows in deficit, $22,500 is a engagement with the auditors to audit the FY22 year along with the FY21 year. So I have them doing 2 years in one fiscal year.
So we wouldn't have budgeted for that because you weren't here to ask us
Correct.
to
Sorry.
do 2 years. Okay. I take that back about having money for the conference. No, I'm kidding.
So that means we're 4,000 over the estimated 21?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct, exactly. Okay. But that's the drill down that we have to do every time you run this report. Once the adjustments are made, the checks are cut, we run the report, do the analysis, do the work, and then send it out in the packet. Bless you. Going down a little further down into district information management, you've heard about the reimbursements that we'll be getting on some of the technology procurement. So we're awaiting some of those reimbursements there. Some of the salary work, you've had conversations here in regards to those positions and what line items are carrying salaries. In this particular case, the salary for the curriculum is also in here, and that had been discussed and the work was done this summer in that regard. So we're carrying that as a deficit. That is an actual expense we're going to look to cover. Continuing down, the other piece in regards to salaries is we also have to encumber them and then recalculate encumbrances depending on what happens during the school year. If people transfer in, transfer out, resignations in, resignations out, certain things have to be recalculated. So again, it's the timing of the work on this report and then when we reissue it.
But that's updated as we go.
It's updated
Typical.
as we go for the most part, but you're processing warrants twice. And so if you book a warrant, if you book a warrant and then you run the report and then cut your checks, you don't disencumber the checks because you did it out of sequence. Okay. It's literally that, not technical, but it's just a missing step sometimes if Stephanie prints the report and we haven't cut the checks yet, kind of thing. So it's just a check and balance, no pun intended. Hey, are we all ready to run the report? And some of it's the fact that maybe I'm not in the office full time as well. The larger areas, again, you see here in maintenance of grounds, maintenance of plant. You see building security. This is your SRO that we have in the district now. in all 4 schools?
The detail.
The detail?
That's the details at 65,000?
There's other items in there, school security stuff that we've had to do.
They install all those cameras and everything.
Yep.
We just got an update on that on the 29th.
Right.
And
I guess I'm concerned
the
that
mon-
we're
well, we did not
65
budget for
minus,
that. We did not budget for,
but we're only in October.
but we're not
See how
moving
we
the money
encumbered-
into this
We
line.
encumbered this almost 70,000. That
Yeah.
was the hourly rate times the number. Remember we did the calculation, it was at
Yep.
the hourly
But we
rate.
never put the money on that line because
Right.
we approved
Right.
it after the budget.
So you'll see that the bulk of that is because it's just encumbered. We haven't
Correct.
spent it. Yeah.
But what we try to do is account for all salaries, encumber the salaries, encumber the heat and things like that, and then we consistently have to forecast as we go along.
How long do we think that the balancing of salaries is going to take? Because this report, I haven't, obviously, the last report we had, it feels like, without, memorizing things, obviously, that we have more over, negative budget balance in more spots than we did on the last report. So and part of the explanation that we received when we started to see the negative was that salaries were being moved. But it seems like more negative is on this report than last report. So my question is, how long is it going to take to find the right lines where things should be evening out? Because on this report, and there's five or six lines over $100,000 negative. I don't feel like there were that many last reports. So, but that explanation there was that we were moving salaries, et cetera. When does that balance out so we can start feeling better about these high negative numbers?
So I think your salary line items
Or me, no better.
are probably 90% there as we sit here this evening. Some of the movement may still need to be made to grants from the general fund. Once we finish our hiring, we've got a few positions open, we'll be encumbering those funds as well. The line items that will be in deficit based on what we know of at hand will be generated at your next meeting. Because again, salaries are at 90% because of the work that was done this summer. Those transfers for the most part have been made. The adjusting journal entries have been made for this report. And that really leaves the 10% of salaries that may or may not be able to go to grants if we can. But B, the deficit line items will be your deficits that we will have to present to you. How are we going to handle those?
So those aren't ever going to change because of what we budgeted and
Correct.
started with. That these aren't changing, Tammy. So you're not going, but what they did change is what line the salaries are coming out of. So this is always going to stay the same because it's what we approved
The budget, right.
after town meeting. Then,
But our
then there were
balance-
corrections made of who's
I'm
being
more worried
billed.
about our balance getting,
So the bottom
deeper.
line, the very end budget balance bottom line is the number that we're going to have to watch, because if I'm understanding it correctly, we moved what account numbers they were billed from, but we didn't move what was budgeted.
Correct.
Right.
So that's always going to look like a negative until the end of the year when we balance out.
when we see
Correct.
management of grounds at already negative 186,965, we haven't even seen a flake of snow.
That's a great one.
Yeah,
then
that's a journal
I
entry.
start to,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
start to think, okay, it's hard to, like, how are we supposed to be judging when
Yeah, that's the,
when
Maybe
we are
only-
in a big, when snow removal has gone way above our budget and there's an issue that we need to be concerned about.
We only
Because
budgeted 41,000.
what I don't want to see is at the end of the year, all of a sudden, we have a $300,000
that's not where the line is.
negative.
It's
So-
a journal entry.
For
She'll
grant.
explain that.
Okay,
Yeah.
because then we have to take that from teaching and learning. We have
Yes.
to take that from somewhere
That
else.
won't
That
happen.
doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy, so,
She'll make you feel warm and fuzzy.
okay.
So $174,000 was moved out of that line as a prior year expense based on the audit work. So again, your report that you're looking at that shows that line item in deficit, $180,000 odd, that expense belonged to the previous year and that has been done.
It
Now
has
you're-
been what?
It has been done. That expense has been moved because that's where it belonged. So the audit work has moved the expense to where it belongs. So right now,
But we paid it out of this year.
we paid it out of this year because of rollover issues, which isn't unheard of. So you book all your expenses June 30th. There's no one in the finance office right now, by the way. It's June 30th, and you've got to roll your fiscal years. What's the best way we can do that? They've rolled it over, and they start paying their bills, and some get paid in this fiscal year because the rollover wasn't either A, successful, B, complete, whatnot. We get in, we audited, because when we printed this report, I said, wait a minute, this can't be right. So let's bring in the auditors, and we go through the audit, and we do our end-of-the-year audits, journal entries, which we do every single year to account for end-of-the-year rollover. Are they typically $174,000? 100 of that was paving, from what I understand. So when you do your big bulk purchases in June for July, if that June 30th rollover isn't done correctly and on time, you'll end up doing journal entries, which are very common, which are done at each end of the fiscal year to book the appropriate expenses that occurred to the fiscal year which they belong, which the school committee also votes on. So that work was done. And it
So
typically is
we've
done.
already voted to move $174,000?
No, you
I don't
haven't
remember that.
voted, but you voted the project. You voted the project, so somebody needed to move the expense to the correct place it was voted and accounted for.
It was an accounting issue. Like an
Because we
accounting error.
approved that, and that was paid out of
Fiscal
Right.
22.
So are you saying, I'm sorry, are you saying that because there was the gap between Matt leaving and Deirdre starting, that rollover didn't
The
happen?
rollover happened, but here's what happened. June 30th, there's literally like a button you have to hit in budget sense
Sure.
to roll the system
Sure.
over. And the stuff that the school committee approved that we had summarized and sent out to our finance department to say, hey, we're buying these things in fiscal 22, just FYI, we need to encumber the money. Some of that was entered, but not all of it was entered. And so it was an accounting error. So
Some of
when-
it was encumbered,
Right,
some of it
some of it
was
was
not.
not.
Okay.
Right.
through like an open purchase order, which you can do from fiscal 22 to carry it in.
Sure.
So the paving's a good example. That was not entered as an open purchase order in fiscal 22 to carry over. So when Deirdre saw that, it flagged an issue to her. She met with the accountants. They drilled into it and said, well, 100 of that 174,000 was paving. Oh, that was fiscal 22. So
there-
let's go make the journal entry, which is what you did, to take it out of, so it's not charged to 23 right now.
Actually, it's your assistant treasurer too. So
Yeah.
Ron, your CPA, Ron, the assistant treasurer, and I, and the auditors, all 6 of us are saying, all right, what happened at the end of the fiscal year? Where were these expenses charged? Where should they have been charged? And what was the school committee approval process for that?
Isn't that what we usually vote on at the beginning of the year, those corrections to things? Am I,
That's the closeout for fiscal 20, for each fiscal year. That, like when we close the books, that July meeting, that's the old fiscal year that we're closing the books on.
but that should have been in the old fiscal book.
It should have been charged to the old fiscal year, and it wasn't because when it rolled over, it didn't roll over as an open purchase order. So when we received the bill, it was just charged to, to fiscal #23. So they had to go back in and do a journal entry and move it to fiscal '22.
I guess my final question is, right now, this line says one negative over $185,000.
It's not.
Whatever fix we're doing, whatever the paperwork involves, does this number change?
Yes, it's
Okay.
now, as we sit here, negative $10,163.32. And we have $30,000 worth of purchase orders that the facility manager has to go through, verify that those purchase orders are appropriate, and if they are, we have to manage and oversee this department and report to the superintendent and the school committee that we've got to find $10,000 by June 30th because this is a solid deficit in this line item.
And that's where we sit on October 13th, not counting snow removal, and where we potentially are over $10,000.
Correct, once this work is done. So we've got the audit work done, now we go do the facilities work, we continue to forecast June 30th throughout the seasons, particularly winter, spring, et cetera, and then we continue to update the school committee on June 30th forecasts.
The $33,000 that's encumbered on that line, is that for snow or is that for something else?
We'd have to go through, I could take a quick look if you'd like.
It just seems to me to go on Tammy's point. So we approved all these grounds and maintenance updates and projects that happened over the summer. But so we over allocated funds
We
to that?
didn't. It was honest to God, it was somebody they checked the wrong box. That's all that happened. So what we did was you go back and you uncheck that box and you check the different one and you make the journal entry in it. So I don't want you to think that we're not
I'm
spending
saying
this
that
year's money on that.
No. I'm
Okay.
saying, she's saying as of right now, today, we're sitting at negative 10,000. After that journal
the
entry was
fixes.
made to fix it.
Yes, that's a different issue. That's what she's referring to.
Negative 10,000, but with 33,000 encumbered, which means it's not spent, but it's predicted. So that could very well be snow.
We need to look at the encumbrances.
I don't think it's $33,000 of landscaping,
No, you've got
because
things.
that is just grounds.
You've got fire protection systems, you've got purchase orders that are encumbered for annual, monthly kinds
But
of.
that would be buildings, not grounds, right?
Yeah, exactly. But you've got some landscaping, you've got some lining of the fields, there's some other things from that perspective. But again, if, I almost said Jason, sorry. When we go through all of the purchase orders assigned to maintenance and facilities and grounds, we've got to take a look at all of the encumbrances from now that are open to make sure that they're valid and to make sure that the line items that are presenting themselves to you, if in fact they are presenting them in deficit, are actual deficits. That's absolutely the work that needs to be done.
Okay.
Additionally, on Monday, Scott and I have a conference call to talk about utilities, pricing, and what's happening in the marketplace right now. We're trying to bid out collaboratively fuel oil and also understand what we're looking at as far as the winter is concerned. There are some consultants out there that you can work with that can take a look at all of your systems and for fee, come in and try to save you utility money. I just don't know, depending on what happens with the utilities now, how much that really can save you at this particular juncture. But it also goes to the heating of the buildings that we're doing and things like that. But I do think that the work that Scott and I are doing together is really solid work, and it really centralizes that work, including the building level custodial and maintenance staff as well, going directly to one facilities person in the district and organizing the procurement of it a little more centralized and efficiently. Other areas here are your retirement benefits and things that are going to continue to fluctuate based on certain things that happen during the year, such as open enrollment, qualifying conditions of, or events rather, for current employees. And we also have a couple new hires that will be hiring for open positions that will also have health insurance and other benefits associated with those hires. So those are also some areas that we certainly need to focus on. And we're also getting our new health insurance rates starting in January. So then those line items will have to be forecasted throughout the year as well, particularly when the rates change. The other goal I have for this report is revenue. I started to pull revenue from your reports. I took a look at some of your revenue line items here, and I would like to update and present this report a little differently with the revenue component to it. Those are some of the goals that we have in regards to the business office work, but particularly around expense report, revenue report, and reporting to the school committee.
It's right here. It's the top.
And again, just the goal is to get off of extraneous spreadsheets and get it all system generated so that we can.
Because in all honesty, if you were giving us a spreadsheet, it wouldn't look like this. This is real. This is real time from the system. So you would have been able to type 10,000, negative 10,000, you know, so as hard as it is to read, but I think it's important too, Deirdre, to point out everyone's eyes should be going to the bottom line of the budget balance. It is not a negative number. You know, the last page of this report with your grand totals, the first line is what we approved as a budget. And the encumbrances are what we are projecting our expenses for knowns. You know, the known expenses. And then the budget balance is where it stands even with the lines that are negative. So I don't think there should be any panic at the end of every year, June 30th, we are spending for paving, for, you know, we're spending down this line. So we stay within our 5% E&D.
I just want to say, I'm not panicked. I want to be able to read it. So
Yeah.
when I often will look at, when I get my package, I look at last month's stuff, I look at this month's stuff, I try to see
The comparison.
the comparison. So when again, I'm here on the fly, I'm late, all of that. But when I see so many things that I didn't recall from last month, I just want to make sure I'm comparing apples to apples. And although one line item is off by, like I said, October 13th, 186,000, we also do our budget with money spent on certain things. And I know that there's always some movement among lines and that, but I do think it's important that we keep an eye on numbers, because we're just using grounds as an example because that happens to be the highest negative number, but our intent in our budget is not to spend $700,000 in grounds, it's to spend that money somewhere else. And if we have to make up for that later on because we're not following the ball, then that will be a problem for all of us. So that's my point. I get that we're in good shape, and I just worry when I see very high negative numbers without explanations, comparatively month to month.
But in the same respect, I'm happy to hear that explanation for that line.
Right, which
That
is
it
why
will
I
be
asked the
corrected.
question. But
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next, you have your personnel change report for your information. We've had 3 Unit A hires in our district, 1 Unit C, and 2 other positions that have been appointed for permanent and long-term sub, for your information and file.
All right, thank you very much. And moving on to facilities. Will Scott be joining us?
Good evening. So facilities, industrial burner has received the parts to pressure release valves for the boilers at the high school. They're just waiting to schedule somebody to come in and do the work. And Craig Cassavan, our electrician, has installed a remote boiler shutoff as required by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So this will bring the high school boiler room up to compliance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That's something that our insurance inspector found when he came out and did his inspections. The Fred Hartnett Middle School, on October 5th, the building was calling for heat and the boilers failed to start up. When I went in and diagnosed it, I found that the VFD drive that controls the circulator pumps was malfunctioned. I called Craig Cassavan to come in, diagnose it, found that there's power getting to the unit, but not power getting out of the unit to tell the circulator pumps to turn on. So as a built-in safety feature, it tells the building maintenance, the building management system, not to fire the boilers. We are able to override that manually, so we do have heat in the building. The JFK playgrounds. Jason and I discussed that it's best to move forward with our custodial staff in order to process wood chips and do the work ourselves. So I reached out to the company to see how soon they could deliver that, and he's gonna have a driver shortage coming up. One's got medical issues, so we're looking at probably the first week in November to have those delivered.
And just to be clear, that's money that we spent last year.
That was rolled over, yes. That was part of that.
Just making sure.
That 100,000.
Yes.
We spent the money. On June 29th.
So that's the AF Maloney playground. The JFK playground, as we all know, is a much bigger issue. So we're still holding off to get more detailed plans as to what steps to take. Unfortunately, because of the slope of the hill, it doesn't make it ADA compliant, so we'd have to build retaining walls to level it off. And as it stands now, we'd have to build a 4-foot retaining wall to get that playground level. That's why we're trying to shrink the footprint of the playground, which is much more detailed. So we're waiting for more plans on that. The Millville Elementary School, as you know, on August 20th, we had a power failure. We found that when we restored the power, air handler 8, which is located in the kitchen, controls the ventilation system for the kitchen and such, the heat. It was smoking. We found smoke up in the ceiling. We called the fire department out. They came out. Building inspector came out. Electrical inspector came out. However, after that, we found that probably 6 other units are not working. They will work in hand mode. We do have 2 units that we cannot control the heat in right now, and that's located in the kitchen and the cafeteria. The buildings are still warm. They're still getting heat circulated through them. It's just not blowing out. So we don't have to worry about freezing pipes or anything like that. We're working on getting quotes for that as we speak. The playgrounds, much like JFK, we're moving forward with the custodial staff. I will have to look for volunteers or rent a mini excavator to get into the preschool playground to remove the pea stone that's in there. We have to go down about 12 inches to put 12 inches of the processed wood chips and relocate a section of fencing for the slide. So that's a little more detail, but we should get that done by this year.
And Scott, if I can just add to that, on the issue with the air handlers and the transformer unit, I did have a conversation with the town administrator from Millville, so he knows. Like, he's very much in the loop of what's going on with that. So once we get the estimates, we'll go back to a discussion with him. And he did have a meeting with the Board of Selectmen in Millville to make sure they were aware of the issue. So that had happened.
But I just want to be clear too, that these air handlers control the auditorium, the cafeteria, the gymnasium, and part of the office area. So all classrooms still have heat. Like I said, other than those 2 units, every other unit has heat. We can control by hand. Apparently there's a building automation system in that building too that nobody knew about until this happened. It was software that was run by DOS back in 1994. And nobody knew about that system. Maybe I'm sure previous administrators knew about it. Custodial staff, they didn't know about it.
It's not usable now.
What's that?
It's not usable now.
No, even if we found that computer. So that's part of the process to bring it all back up to today's standards.
Question?
Is anybody interested in buying Peastone if we have to get rid of that much? So that's a real question.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can we sell that to someone?
Doubt it.
Yeah.
From the JFK? Is that what you?
Millville.
Millville.
Oh,
Preschool.
12 inches of Peastone?
Yeah, it's a lot of Peastone.
And it has to come out, we
Something nice.
can't compact it and put the new ground over it?
My concern would be that if the wood chips got kicked up, or dug down enough underneath the slides and stuff, that Peastone would come back up
Okay.
and contaminate that. What I was thinking was taking it out and laying it over the access road to the fire water tower that's in the back. Just spread it out over that, just to get rid of it.
So we don't have anywhere else we have to fill. Well, I was
The
just
problem
thinking
is-
You know, sometimes you have to fill things with,
Yeah, the problem would be trucking it out of there. There'd be a lot of trips with our dump truck, which probably isn't capable of handling that. As dump truck body is rotting out pretty severely.
And I don't want to assume, so I'll ask, there is a priority on fixing the heat
There is a
in the
priority.
building?
Every company I got in to do an estimate, I told them that we need this ASAP.
Yeah.
As you know, we're a school and we have students.
I mean, I would say before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay,
Absolutely.
just making sure.
Like I said, there's still heat in the building.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
But those big spaces can get cooler faster.
Yeah. So the auditorium is one of the ones that we can control by hand.
Okay,
The gymnasium we control by hand.
okay.
The kitchen, that'll get warm enough just from cooking in there, as we all know. I guess the only one of any concern would be the cafeteria, but again, there's still air circulating, so the hot water is still flowing through the pipes.
All right, any other questions for Scott? And then we just have the surplus for MES. Actually, we have action required on use of,
Yes, it is.
sorry, I just didn't mean to skip over that, but surplus for MES, everyone had the printed copy. So I'm looking for a motion to dispose of the surplus items listed.
so moved.
Motion made by Tammy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chuck. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous, thank you. And use of facilities, we have a few, right? BME, PTO,
Girl Scouts and BME.
and then the Girl Scouts. This candy, the candy piece goes with the BME, okay. Okay, so knowing we have that great calendar in place, obviously these come to us because the space is available.
Right.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the 2 use of facilities requests.
Motion approved.
Motion made by Dan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Erin. Any questions or comments? All those in favor for the facility request, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous, thank you. And moving on to school committee forum. Anyone have any items to share?
I do have. I was told by the town clerk in Blackstone today. Last year, the town clerk and the town accountant set up, they have a trick-or-treat night at the town hall. And I don't know, Mr. Superintendent, if they sent a flyer to you as well. But they offered the school committee to set up a table in the town hall to participate in the trick-or-treat night. It's October 25th from 4 to 6:30 p.m. at the town hall. And the first 30 minutes will be for sensory friendly to accommodate families with sensory or other special needs. So again, that's October 25th, 4 to 6:30, and this committee is also welcome to set up a table. Every department of the town sets up a table throughout the town hall. So.
It's an inside event?
Inside.
Not a trunk
Yes.
or treat?
Inside.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like they set up spider webs and things like that.
So, is that too early for you, Dan? 4 p.m.?
Oh,
I assume they would want us in costume?
Yeah, either way, yeah.
Do you have you ever been to this?
This is the second one, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so yes, I did.
We
go
need
last year.
details, Dan.
All right, details, so
Do we need a
Do we have to have a
board? Do
theme?
we have to,
we
like,
decorate?
Table.
we just go with candy and call it a day?
Costumes
I'm
and
trying to find my
and a bunch of candy and things. And it was pretty successful last year. A lot of kids came through with their parents, and yeah, it was a very nice event. So yeah, it's worth it. If I would say it's good PR for the school district to be there.
Would you like to chair that, Dan? Anyone
Nothing
interested?
there's no committee to be had, but if other members.
Could we find someone willing to wear the charger
Ooh.
mascot in costume? Put a costume on that.
Perfect.
You're talking.
We could actually give some kids some community service.
I did put that flyer on, I took a screenshot with my cell and I posted it on our website, Facebook, and Twitter last night.
Okay.
So I did put it, I sent it out for everybody. And Millville's trying to do something, not like that, but something different. So I'm working with Jennifer Gill and someone else, I can't recall the name of it on my head, but to help put.
Yeah, they've done a trick or treat in the past. I've done that
Trunk or treat,
trunk or treat
something.
in the past.
Sarah was always our person to like get the theme going and
All right, I'll throw a theme together for you and report back to you. All right?
you will?
I will,
Okay.
yeah.
See, you are the chair.
All
of
right, so
the
I'm not to note, I don't
Halloween
undertake
committee.
any responsibility for that, but I'll do my best.
All right. So if anyone's available October 25th from 4 to 6:30, I would assume you'd have to be there a little early. Set up. Please let Dan know.
And give my cell phone number so you
And,
can text me. So that,
but I do think we could
You
get the
should,
charger
yeah.
there. That's a great idea.
And Tara did text me if we were going to take a table during this meeting, and I'll tell her yes. We'll, even if I'm the only one. I'm sure I won't be the only one there. I'm sure Carrie and Ted will be there. And
I unfortunately work on Tuesday nights.
All right.
we'll make arrangements for you.
Thank you.
We'll zoom you in.
All right. Any other items for committee forum before we move into executive session? Because it is not over until it's over. So I'm looking for a motion to move into executive session, not to return into our meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. Motion made by Tammy, second by Dan.
Yes.
And we'll roll call in. Erin?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Tammy?
Yes.
Erin, yes?
Yes.
Dan? Carrie?
Yes.
Thank you so much.